Some people treat exams like they are the most important thing in the world. And in some situations that might be the case. That specific exam might allow you to pursue your dream career, but for me personally, I've never needed to take it too seriously. But before I get into that, the goal for today's video is to move this farm up there next to the potato farm so I can make some space so this horse over here has a little place to live. I don't want him to just live in this hole for the rest of his life. So pretty much my whole life I've never studied for exams, but I always end up still getting good grades, and I'm not trying to say that as a flex. Getting good grades without studying probably is the main reason why I was never motivated to study for upcoming exams. But today I'm not trying to give you guys any advice on how to make exam season less stressful, but instead I just want to share a few funny stories I had during exam season back in school, and one big story from university. One thing you guys will have to keep in mind while I'm telling these stories is these stories never took place in an exam that actually mattered. All these stories are from end of topic tests, and those tests were always held in class and they didn't really mean anything. The first story is from a science exam. This exam was an MCQ, which means multiple choice questions, and that just means you either answer A, B, C, or D. These tests were just held in normal classrooms, so pretty much you could just sit wherever you want. Because of this, me and my friend obviously decided to sit next to each other, and maybe 15 minutes into the test, he started making noises trying to get my attention. At first I was super confused and I looked up at him and pretty much signaled like, what do you want? And he was pointing his calculator at me. So I read what the calculator said. It just had a number, and that number was a question in the test. So let's say it was 6. He was pretty much just asking me what the answer to question 6 is. And because these were scientific calculators, there are some specific letters that you can actually write on the calculator as well. So let's say the answer was C. I just took my calculator and wrote C and showed it back to him. And we just kept doing that for the whole test, back and forth, and it was working perfectly. Even a girl we were friends with at the time looked at us and saw what we were doing and decided she wants to be part of it as well, and she started asking me questions. And I just thought that was super funny, how the teacher just never noticed. But to be fair, in tests like this, the teachers usually just never cared. Even if he saw it, he probably just was like, whatever. But I highly doubt he did see it. The next one was a maths test, and the thing you need to know for this is maths was the one subject where I could not bullshit at all. You know, it's a subject that no one can. You either know how to do the question or you don't. It's not like history or English where you can just write random stuff and hope for the best. Obviously, someone like me who doesn't revise struggled with maths, and that just makes perfect sense. But the person I was sitting next to in the test is a really good friend of mine, and he's really good at maths. And this friend knew I was struggling, so he was trying to help me out by writing the answers very big in the top of his page so I could read it. But he was still way too fast for me, so what I ended up doing was just straight up taking his paper from him and giving him mine. And we both started laughing, but obviously like silently laughing. And he pretty much just started doing the test for me as well. And we kept just passing the papers back and forth, and he was pretty much doing both of our papers at the same time. We kept doing this for most of the test, but the last question was like a graph question, and I was really good at that topic, so I didn't need his help, so I was just doing the question by myself. We finished our test, we handed it in, and we were laughing about it afterwards. A couple weeks later, we got our results back, and this was when it became super funny. I ended up getting one more mark than him, and this was because I got my graph question right and he got it wrong. He was so annoyed at that, and till this day I tease him about it, and it was just like a super wholesome funny moment. The next story was a computer science exam. I need to go get some more wood so I can make this horse stable thing. So as I was saying, this was a computer science exam. So pretty much I had 2 exams on at the exact same time, and because of this I had to do my computer science exam before the rest of the class. And to make sure there was no cheating, what would happen is right after the computer science exam I would have to go get locked in a room until my next exam when everyone else would be doing the computer science one. So I finished my computer science exam and I ended up getting escorted to the room where I was gonna get locked in. They did this to make sure no cheating happened. Like obviously I could just go and tell my class what the questions were. But what ended up happening was I spotted a friend that doesn't do computer science but was a really good friend of mine on the way to the room. I signaled him the number 2 with my hand. Obviously I did this because you can't speak, and right now you're probably wondering like, what does that even mean? Like, what does number 2 mean? So pretty much before the exam, me and my friend from my computer science exam were looking at all the past papers and looking at the possible papers that the exam could be. We ended up narrowing it down to 3 papers because of various reasons, and number 2 meant the second paper. So the friend that I signaled number 2 to obviously had no idea what that meant. He knew exactly what to do, and he went up to my friend in computer science and pretty much told him that artun signaled the number 2, and my friend in computer science knew exactly what that meant, and he got super happy, found the paper, and just started memorizing it. You could say that was a selfless play by me. I was out there dishing assists like Chris Paul. The next story is actually with the same exact friend and the same exact computer science class, but it was just a different test. This test was held in our normal computer science class, and we had no idea we had a test that day. So we just had our laptops out because we always have our laptops out in normal classes. But the teacher started handing out exam papers to us, and most of us put our laptops away, but my friend kept his laptop laptop up. Nobody even noticed, the teacher included. You know, we were all just doing our exam, and 30 minutes in, he tries to get my attention, so I look up at him, and his laptop screen is pointing at me with all the answers on the screen. I could not stop laughing, but again, I had to hold it in as best as I could, and he started laughing too. Again, I don't know what the teachers do in this situation. They're probably just like watching YouTube or something because they're so bored. I never get how they never notice, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's just say we both did pretty good in that exam. And the last story from high school is based around one of my friends, who I can say this because he's my friend, is a big nerd. He's a super nerd. But there was one exam, I don't remember what subject it was, but he ended up not revising for it. So in the middle of the test, to help him, he decided to pull his phone out and put it between his legs so he could search up the answers. But what he forgot to do was lower the brightness. So he pretty much had a full brightness phone in a darkish room, blasting in his glasses, and it was reflecting off his glasses. And obviously the teacher noticed. So the teacher called him out in front of the whole class and said, "You're literally cheating, you have your phone out." And my friend replied with the most innocent voice, and I'm not joking, it was like he made it sound like he has never done anything wrong in his life. He looked at her and he just said, "Phone? Like, why would I have my phone? Like, my phone's in my bag." "Oh, like oh, that's my calculator. That's probably what you thought it was." And because he has such a good reputation with teachers, the teacher didn't even think about it. She just believed him and just moved on. The rest of the class, including me, were all like kind of excited to see if he would get in trouble because we've never seen him in trouble before. But he survived for another day and survived for the rest of school. And that's it. That's all my school stories. And I know all those stories were me allegedly cheating, but again, they were not on the important tests because you physically couldn't do them in the important tests. The story I'm about to tell is based in university, and surprisingly, this isn't about cheating. I probably have enough wood. I don't know why I'm still chopping trees down. The story begins during Christmas break. Pretty much, I was back home in Thailand during the Christmas break, and I had exams coming up the next semester, so I had exams as I landed back in the UK pretty much. If you guys have ever been on a flight, you would know that most of the time you book flights way beforehand, and that's what happened in this situation. I ended up booking my return flight to the UK one day before my exam, meaning I would be back in my university the night before my exam. And I ended up doing this because I wanted to maximize my time in Thailand, and I obviously thought because the exams are super important, I would have definitely revised during the month off. And obviously I was wrong. Long story short, I did not revise, and I got on that flight to the UK. I landed in London, and my university is not in London, but I land in London just because it's easier. This was around 5:30 p.m. For some reason, we were told to sit for about 30 to 40 minutes after we already landed, so we were just sitting in our seats while the plane was already on the ground. When we finally got out of the plane and into the airport, there was this huge line. I just assumed that the line was for something else, and I walked past it, but the airport security stopped me and asked me what passport I have, and I don't have the passport that allows you to go into the fast track line. So he told me to get to the back of the line because that was the line for everyone else. And I'm not even exaggerating here, this line was not even in the same room as the border control room. It ended up taking me about 2 hours, maybe even 2.5. To get to the front of the line. I got through border control and I got my luggage. The luggage was no longer on the spinning thing because we were in that line for so long that it was just on the floor. I got my bag and I made my way to the tube, which is like the London Underground train. And by the time I got to the Underground train, it was around 9:30. And the train that I booked to my university was the last train of the day, which was at around 11 p.m. or just before. You know, so I still had over an hour to get to my train, and Google Maps was saying it would take about like 40 minutes. So I wasn't stressed at all. I even thought once I got to the train station, I'd be able to get some food because I was super hungry. So I got into the tube, and for the first 20 minutes, everything was going fine. Also, quick side note, the person sitting across me was probably the most beautiful person I've ever seen, but obviously I didn't end up saying anything because women are scary. Nah, I'm joking. Well, I'm not like fully joking, like I still didn't talk to her because I was scared, but you get what I mean. Honestly, I'm not even thinking while I'm doing this, I'm just placing blocks down. I swear you can... Wait, what? I swear you can like stripe the... Oh, there you go. Okay, besides that, so I was in the train, and 20 minutes in, we came to a stop. The train driver announced that there's slower trains ahead, so we're gonna have to come to a stop for now. And I still wasn't worried. I had no thought in my mind that I was gonna miss this train. Once we started moving again, maybe 5 minutes later, the train driver announces that he needs to start testing the brakes of the train. I'm not even exaggerating here, but maybe 15 times he started the train and then it came to a halt, and then he just did that again and again and again. Welcome to your new home, buddy. I still need to name this guy. By the time I get a name tag, I'll definitely think of someone. Pretty much all that happened, and by the time I arrived to my train station, there was 1 minute to my actual train. So obviously I did not make that, and that was the last train of the day, as I said. So I went up to the people that worked there and I asked if there's any other way for me to get to my city. They looked at me and they gave me a very long route, and I just was not gonna do that. So I asked him what the earliest train was the next day, and he said 6 a.m. So I got that booked, and I went to just go sit on a chair. I had to figure out what I was gonna do until then. At this time, my phone phone was at 10% and I did not have a charger. But luckily I do have friends in London. I ended up texting one of them telling them what just happened, and he said he'll ask our other friend if I can stay with him for the night. Luckily that friend was super nice and he said obviously you can stay over and send me the address to his house. But he also told me he has an exam at 9 AM the next day. And you know, so did I, but mine was at 1:30. So I pretty much asked him if he's sure that it's fine that I stay over, and he's like, oh yeah, don't worry bro, I don't care. So I made my way over to his house. And it had been a while since we met, so we were just catching up. And the initial friend that I texted me saying he'll pull up as well if I go buy him food. At this time, it was now 11:50 PM, and I remember that exactly because the restaurant was closing in 10 minutes. Because I really wanted to see my friend, and I was super hungry, I made my way to the restaurant. I would never go to a restaurant when it's just about to close usually, but because of this specific situation, I kinda had to. I walked into the restaurant and I was the only one there. And from the looks of things, it was quite obvious they were about to close. I asked one of the workers if they're still open or not, and she just stared into my soul and muttered under her breath saying yes. I felt so bad at this point, but I gave her my order and my friend's order, and I just went to go stand in a corner. I did not make eye contact once while waiting for the food. You know, a couple minutes later she said my food was ready and gave it to me. I apologized and just got out of there. I knew most likely they'd probably spit in my food, but at that point I deserved it. So I made it back to the house and the other friend had already arrived. I handed him the food and then we just caught up pretty much. The friend who had the exam at 9 AM went to sleep, and me and the other friend just stayed up till about 3 AM just chatting and catching up. But at around midnight, he looked at me and said, do you want some beers? There's some beers in the fridge. And I was like, come on bro, now I've got an exam tomorrow, I can't do that. And he's like, nah, come on bro, one won't hurt. We drank a couple and he ended up leaving at 3 AM. My train was at 6, so I set an alarm for 5 AM and I tried to go to sleep. But it was one of those ones where when I woke up, I had no idea if I actually slept or not. It genuinely just felt like nothing. So I got up, I made the train, and I got to my accommodation at around 9 AM or 9:30. My exam was at 1:30, so I still had some time to revise. And the way these exams worked was there would be 3 topics on these papers, but it would be out of 10 topics. So technically you had to revise for all 10. But I just went for a Hail Mary, and because I had no time, I decided I'm just gonna revise for 3 topics and hope for the best. I revised, I made my way to the exam hall, and in these exam halls you have to enter 15 minutes early, so no one's late and everyone can start at the same time. And those 15 minutes were probably the longest 15 minutes of my life. I was sitting there shaking because I was so nervous, and the time finally came where we were allowed to flip the paper, and to my surprise I got all 3 topics correct. So that exam went completely well and I went back home. I had 2 more exams coming up in the next few days, so again I didn't really have enough time to revise for all topics, so I did the exact same strategy again. For the second exam I got super lucky again and I got 2 out of 3 topics right, and the third topic I had basic knowledge on already, so that test went pretty well as well. But the third test I struck out. I got lucky twice and did not get lucky the third time. I still ended up doing okay on the test, but I knew it wouldn't be like a crazy grade. But honestly at the time I did not care because it was the last exam and I was just super happy that I'm done. And yeah, you guys can use that as a life lesson. Don't just go into things hoping for the best, and try prepare as much as you can. Also, just before I end, I just want to say, I'm not saying that you should not revise or anything. Please do prepare for your exams. I just wanted to make a lighthearted video of sharing some stories that I found funny, and I hope you guys enjoyed them. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any funny stories or just anything about exams in general. And yeah, that's pretty much it guys. If you ended up enjoying this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you're still watching till now, you're definitely enjoying it, so you might as well watch the video that just popped up. Or don't, it's obviously up to you. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great night. Peace.